Hey there, everybody, welcome back to From the Universe Podcast, Season 2, Episode 8, or From the Universe, Episode 13. Today, we're going to be talking about the Skybound Energon Universe run of Transformers. Um, I'm going to be covering spoilers. I'm going to talk about spoilers from Transformers issue number 1 all the way to issue number 27, right? Because that's the most recent one which is out so far. So yeah, if you have not read the comics or if you want to start reading the comics, I suggest avoid this video, avoid this podcast, because it covers a lot of spoilers. Um, and if you have read, well, comment down below what you think of, like if your opinions match mine, or if you have different opinions, like is the Warren Johnson one good? Comment down below. So yeah, I think it's time to roll out. Alright, so for this first segment, I'm going to be talking about the Warren Johnson run of the comic. Because, even though there are 27 issues, Warren Johnson has written only issues 1 to 24, right? And and issue number 20, issue 25, 26, 27, they are written by Robert Kirkman. So for this first segment, I'm going to talk about the issues 1 to 24. All right. So when this first when issue number 1 released, right? It was a big thing, right? Because I think there was no story like what issue 1 was going to tell. Like if there was no that kind of uh comic comic issue before for Transformers, right? Because I mean, killing off half the Autobots in the first issue is it's an insane thing to push. Like what it welcome they did to with like they kill half of the kids cast in like episode 1. Uh, so it was insane, right? So I started hearing about uh this Transformers run by Warren Johnson. At least I think towards the beginning of 2024. I think this is when issues 1 to 6 were out, right? And so I was like interested, right? Because I saw a lot of people talking about it. I was like, okay, okay. I mean, this must be something. It must be something nice. I mean, like, why are so many people talking about it? It must be good. It must be either bad, right? And then I started seeing some of the panels from the comics from issues 1 to 6. I was shocked. Like, first of all, we have Optimus Prime with a fusion cannon, right? I was like, with Megatron's fusion cannon, I was like, oh my god, what is the context, man? This looks sick. Um, and then and then I saw the picture, a panel of Optimus Prime holding. No, I saw a page from I think issue 3 or 2, where Optimus Prime accidentally steps on a deer, and he looks at it and says, "Oh, it's such a fragile creature or something." So I was like, okay, okay, this seems very different compared to what I was used to in Transformers. And then the last panel I saw before I got Volume 1 um of of the run was the image was the panel of him ripping out his arm, right? And just hitting the Decepticons with it, like where he rips out his arm and just uses like a belt. Right? So that was insane. So I mean to give context, right? I bought the physical copies of Volume 1 for this Energon Universe of Transformers. Like volume 1 covers 1 to 6, and I also bought volume 2 which covers 7 to 12. After that, I watched some videos on a read through of all comics from uh issue 13 all the way to issue 24. So I read the comic, I read volume 1, and I was shocked because it was it was really really well written, right? It felt like the Transformers 1 of comics. Like Transformers 1, it really, really was made for the fans. It really had a good story. We haven't seen that good of a story in a really long time. Because obviously, Bumblebee movie was a really good movie. Rise of Beast could have been better, right? So there was a huge time gap where in Transformers media we didn't get like excellent stuff like we used to in media, right? And Transformers One really turned that around. So this feels like that, but for comics, like, cause in I think Transformers comics they are good comics, but like I think only some of them, right? But Skybound, this comic run written by Daiwan Johnson really turned things around and got people interested into Transformers comics. One of them being me. So I was like, oh my god, like one thing, things I felt that, the things I felt were this, uh, this comic is really, really well written because it's like you feel every impact, you feel every word, every line which is written, right? You feel the characters even without them saying anything, right? They give amazing backstories to the human characters. The human characters are excellent, right? Like this is probably the best we have seen the humans being utilized in Transformers media aside from maybe some of the movies, not all of them. Right? I'd say probably in the movies it's only uh probably Revenge of the Fallen, the first three Transformers films and Bumblebee. That's it. And probably Rise of the Beast, but not to a huge extent. But everything about this comic was really, really well done, right? Uh, Still killing, and every death in the comic felt really impactful because I mean they killed half of the fan favorites of they killed half of the fan favorites in issue number one, right? They killed Bumblebee, they killed Jetfire. I mean, technically, right? They killed most of the Autobots, right? And it the Autobots were at an all-time low in issue through issues 124. They were at an all-time low. Like they didn't have proper resources. The Decepticons were always ahead of them. Right? They didn't even have enough energon for themselves to even survive, not just to fight, just to survive. So this is a very dark comic, right? I just want to put that this is a very dark comic. Probably one of the darkest stories or darkest comic runs we've had in Transformers history. I appreciate Danny Boy Johnson for that because it's a bold choice, right? Because Transformers is a kids kind of universe. I'm not saying it's like only for kids, but like it was made originally as a cartoon show for kids based on toys, right? So it's a bold choice, right? But I think that darker tone really helps sell the seriousness of the comic because obviously, like you have these under this Transformers, right? Okay, wait. Speaking of Transformers, right? Before I finish that sentence, the designs in this are amazing. I love that they stuck with G1 because I think that's the best option. I mean, like G1 is classic. Like people say, oh, you have to be unique, right? I agree, you have to be unique, but sometimes using the G1 models isn't that bad. And plus, in this comic, they do look a little different. They do look a little different compared to the actual G1. Like they look more mature, if that makes any sense, right? And the way they've used the designs is amazing, right? Um, so yeah, where was I? So I mean, like the Transformer designs, right? They're obviously supposed to be cartoony, kind of right. The designs, although even though they're mature, you still feel that they don't feel realistic, right? I'm not thinking that's a problem. But for some people, when reading the comic, it might take them out of the comic just because that's one of the things you're gonna be looking at in the comic is that the obviously comics are visual. The most important part of them is through visual representation, right? So, uh, the story really helped the designs and all, they don't clash with each other, right? So it just sets one tone for the viewer. I think it's really, really good. Um, each character, like for example, Starscream, right? The backstory which he got was heartbreaking, right? Like, Optimus Prime in this whole thing is painted to be the good guy. He is the good guy. But we see why Starscream, he thinks, like, we see why he is with the Decepticons, right? And it just creates such a conflicting inner feeling of Optimus Prime. I mean, no, I'm not saying he's a bad character. I'm not saying he's a bad guy, right? He's still a good guy. But it's written so well that you just started double think that, huh? And now I understand why the Decepticons are why they are, because you know, knowingly or unknowingly, Optimus Prime has caused harm to other people, right? Obviously, he doesn't mean them, but he has. And some people like Starscream take that and just get fuel it with rage. Like Starscream, Optimus Prime killed his best friend. I think it was an accident, right? And that causes Starscream to become enraged. Like his name wasn't even Starscream. It was Alter, I think. Alter. Right. And then because of his friend dying in front of him and then him seeing Optimus Prime, he joins the Decepticons and he names himself Starscream. His eyes go from blue to red, which signals instead of having inner peace, he has anger within him. And he just goes crazy. Right? Um And let's talk. Oh yeah, Megatron. Even though he isn't there in most of the issues, right? He only starts properly. I mean, we see him in the earlier comics, but only once. He starts properly showing up. When issue I think 17 kicks in. We see him at the end of issue 16, but issue 17 to issue 8, and through that is when he fully starts appearing, and there's this whole classic rivalry between Optimus Prime and Megatron, right? But I feel like they could have done a lot more with Megatron. I mean, I actually felt like Starscream was a much more interesting character compared to Megatron, right? Obviously, that's because they fleshed him out better compared to Megatron, but I just hope with this new run which Robert Kirkman is writing, they can flesh out Megatron better because I feel like we do need that. And they have a lot of opportunities to do some unique stuff, which I get into later. Um, so continuing with the Taiwan Johnson one, right? It's over. I mean, I just keep on saying it, but it's amazing, right? One critique which I have for the whole Daiwan Johnson one from issues 1 to 24 is the art style. I know many people love the art style of issues 1 to 24. I'm just not a big fan of it. But I feel like it's too rough. Well, obviously the stories which are presented are rough, but I don't know, it just they feel kind of unfinished, and plus some of the Transformers in some panels have human-like features, which is kind of off-putting. I just don't like looking at that. And honestly, it's a hot take. I much prefer the art style of the Robert Kirkman comics, which Dan Mora is doing right now, right? The new from issues 25 and still going on. I much prefer that because in this is much more of a rougher kind of thing. Yeah, for some people they might say, it fits the tone, it sells the story, but for me it just doesn't work, But luckily it didn't take me out of the story, but it was a little distracting at some time, as in some panels. But other than that, guys, if you want to get into comics, right? Okay, if you're at least above the age of 10, you should read this, okay? It's a little violent. Okay, it's a little violent. Because there is a lot of human squishing in this, right? Mainly from Decepticons, because oh my God, the Decepticons are so violent, right? Like this is purely madness. This is I think the craziest we've ever seen Decepticons, especially Starscream, right? He's just on next level. He just goes on squishing humans like they're squish toys, right? He steps on them, he grabs them, squishes them, gets blood. Oh, but it's crazy, right? And it works. It sells uh the Starscream to the viewers as, oh, this guy is not just a second in hand. This guy is crazy. This guy is psycho, right? He's a psycho. So I feel like that's a really good take because this is a mature comic, so I feel like it was the right choice for them to do that. Because we don't see a lot of that in the main media. Obviously, it's main media is focused for kids, right? We have a lot of kids focused stuff, but like this comic really used it to the best advantage. So yeah, where was I? Oh yeah, if you're interested, if you want to get into comics, I heavily, heavily suggest you start with Transformers Energon Universe Volume 1, right? People might say, why just Volume 1? You can just read the whole thing. For some people, right, they just like getting at a starting point. And trust me, Volume 1 is not that long. It just, I think, actually, you know what, the issues are really short, right? So when they combine, it feels like a main comic. Uh, so yeah, get Volume 1 or read it online or just watch videos reading through the story like I did for the rest of the issues after issue 12, right? And trust me, you will not regret. It's probably one of the best Transformers stories, unique stories we've had aside from the movies, right? And this whole one is a big win for Transformers fans. And obviously by reception, everyone loves it. There's a lot of unique stuff which happens in this. Like for example, yeah, Megatron, Optimus Prime getting Megatron's arm and using it as his arm. Oh wait, I forgot to talk about Optimus Prime's story. Oh wait, okay, Optimus Prime goes through a lot in all of in from issues 1 to 24. First off, he gets his broken arm, which he used to hit Decepticons with. Um, he gets replaced by Megatron's arm. That's sick, but it doesn't. But that also turns out to be a problem because in later issues he actually starts to get infected by the arm because the arm is just pure evil. That Megatron's that crazy, right? um, so arm get starts. So he gets infected. He becomes the anger within him starts to come out, right? Even before he was able to control the anger, keep it within him, but because of the arm, his anger is coming. He even, I think this is the first time we've seen Optimus actually do a really brutal death aside from the Michael Bay movies, right? Because in I think issue 11 or 12, right? He goes into this kind of trance, right? Like he gets possessed for a second by the arm, and he just becomes enraged, right? And he's beating up Shockwave at that time, right? Shockwave, it was a Optimus Prime versus Shockwave battle. Shockwave was kind of winning. He was getting a little bit of the upper hand because Optimus Prime was a little distracted. But Optimus Prime just grabs Shockwave's head and just yells out in anger and just grab and then squishes Shockwave's head literally. He literally crushes Shockwave's head with his bare hands. And when I first read that, I was like insane. And his eyes turn purple. And also, the human characters, right? Spark and Spike with Ricky, right? The father and son. The father sacrifices himself to save Optimus because I think he gets heavily injured and the Matrix isn't probably working. So Spark with Ricky goes inside the Matrix and basically Spark becomes a part of Optimus Prime. So throughout these issues, he has these mixed memories with Spark, about which have Spike as a baby. There's a lot of baby flashbacks. And it's kind of horrific also because the baby's kind of he's kind of tangling in between Cybertronian wires. It's insane. It's hard to describe, right? But Optimus Prime just goes through it, and I'm so happy after after issue 24 ended, he's finally getting a little bit of a break. Like my guy is really getting back up after issue 24. But yeah, guys, the Danny Warren Johnson one is probably the best Transformers book there probably is. We'll see how Robert Kirkman does with his one. Um, but it's an absolute banger of a comic. I would rate out of 10 a 9.5 out of 10. There are some issues, but those are very minor issues, right? They don't distract you from the main story. Um, so I think lots of new readers, newcomers into the Transformers world will have a lot of fun with this. Um, and yeah, I think it's time we switch over to the next segment, which is now issue 24 was the last issue written by Dai Warren Johnson. So basically, his whole run was issues 1 through 24. So now, moving on to the next segment, which is talking about the current Kirkman run of Transformers Energon Universe. Okay, so the Robert Kirkman one, and if you guys don't know who Robert Kirkman is, he's the same guy who I think created and wrote Invincible, right? Invincible, the guy. You probably guys seen the "Where's Omni Man?" and "Think, Mike, think," right? You probably seen those memes, right? And also he's the same guy who goes like "I'm," and then the title card just comes. It's like "I'm bum 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 bum," right? And he also created The Walking Dead. I think a lot of people know that. No, The Walking Dead is like a zombie show. Yeah, that's pretty much it, I think. No, guys, Walking Dead fans, don't come after me. I haven't watched the show. Okay? So he's a successor to Danny Warren Johnson, right? So he's continuing the universe by while having his own unique stories. He's like, doing new stories within the same universe. So he's not rebooting the universe now. He's just continuing the universe but with his own story. Because I think they wrapped up this the I'd say that the Johnson story, let's just call it that, in issue by the end of issue 24, and that ended really well. So so this from issue 25 all the way up to issue 27. 27 is the latest one. There's still more coming, right? I think issue 28 releases on January 14th next year. Um, so there's a this so issue 25 all the way to issue 27 is way different compared to issue 1 to issue 24, because first of all the art style is different, which I talked about in the previous segment. I much prefer the current Robert Kirkman run art style compared to the Danny Warren Johnson art style, because like the Robert Kirkman one is very simple, right? It's not too cartoony, it's not too childish, but it's not too mature. It's in the middle, right? And I really like it. Plain simple design, and plus it looks finished, right? It looks crisp and all. Whereas the Danny Warren Johnson ones had like this rough kind of art, and it just didn't really work. And they always had this human like features in some panels. It just didn't work. Um, so far Robert Kirkman's one is art is really doing good. Now the story, right? the story tonally is much different compared to issues 1 to 24, right? Because this is the first time I think in this universe the Autobots have a major advantage against the Decepticons. Uh, because right when you pick up issue 25, the Autobots are fully like, after the events of 24, right, they're cleaning up Chicago. Um, and if you don't know what happened in issue 24, there was like a huge battle between the Autobots and Decepticons, where Bruticus and Devastator were also there, right? So there's a huge battle, right? So this is like covering the aftermath of that, where the Autobots are trying to clean up in Chicago, help find humans who were stuck in Chicago during the battle. And they have a lot of resources, right? The military, or oh no, I think some military, I don't know, the military from GI Joe, right? They come to the Autobots, they give them an opportunity. The Autobots take it. The Autobots get insane amount of resources, like a buttload of Energon, right? Enough resources to repair and bring back every Autobot to life. I've seen some people complaining that that's they don't feel as impactful anymore because they're just bringing everyone back. I feel like they need to bring everyone back, otherwise, you know, because we've done the major story with the only few surviving Autobots on Earth, already during the Jai one Johnson one. So they need to switch things up, right? So I'm happy they're bringing most of the cast back. I'm excited to see how they bring back Bumblebee because they say he couldn't specifically be brought back because his spark was damaged. So I think that might set up the possibility of him coming as Goldberg. Alright, so that's interesting to see how they do it. Um, but like the story actually feels very classic, if that makes sense. Like feels like a G1 story. I can't love it. I don't know. Some people are complaining that story, it's not as good as compared to Day One Johnson one, but I'd say just give time. Like I think there's so much potential with this new era of the Skybound comics, right? I think, I mean, obviously there are some moments where it's like, or like, why is this, man? Like, obviously, but like overall, I really like the beginning of the story, right? Like the story is heading in a good direction, I hope, right? And I hope that they don't waste the opportunity, the many potentials they've been given. Like, we have almost half of the Autobots back. Like 90% of the Autobots are back on track, right? And Decepticons are the ones who are struggling because they don't have enough Energon, right? And the issues 26 did something insane where Thundercracker, right? So in previous issues, in the Daiwa and Johnson one, Thundercracker was trying to rescue his brother Skywarp. Because Skywarp was torn apart by his own fellow Decepticons like Starscream and Soundwave, right? And the Autobots found him. And since at that time there was no resources enough, there was not enough resources to save him, right? They attached him to Teletran 1. It was the only way to save him. So it's basically, he was um attached to the Orc, right? So it was like a living computer. So Thundercracker wanted to rescue him. And then since the Autobots had a lot of resources, right? They promised Thundercracker that they will uh fix Skywarp, and they did it. But Skywarp, being the Decepticon that he is, started blasting them, and even then, like Thundercracker just goes through it in this issue, right? Because even though he tried so hard to save his brother, Skywarp doesn't even care for him. He literally says you won't be missed. And the look they drew on Thundercracker's face was heartbreaking, man. Like he spent so long, like so many issues, he was trying to save his brother, figure out how to save his brother. But after he did, it just ended up with Skywalker just treating him like bullcrap, right? So that was heartbreaking. That was really, really heartbreaking. Um, but then that leads to this crazy thing which I don't think has ever been done before. The Thundercracker joins the Autobots, right? He leaves the Decepticons and he joins the Autobots, which is crazy, right? So I'm really excited how they use that in the future, right? Maybe, maybe let's say if there's a battle between the Autobots and Decepticons, I think Thundercracker might be a little hesitant to fight against Decepticons. I don't know, but there's a lot of potential with the story. And they introduced Bulkhead and Mirage into this universe, which is insane, right? That's I don't think Bulkhead was. I don't think was Bulkhead in G1. I don't think so. No, I think that was Hound. Yeah. So the fact that they're introducing some modern characters, obviously Mirage is from G1, but Bulkhead is kind of like a modern character. It's insane, right? There's so much potential with this universe. And the fact that the Cybertron storyline is still active is still crazy, right? They can do a lot with that. So if you guys don't know what the Cybertron storyline is, it's where Elite One, including Blue Streak, Warpath, and who was it, Blur, right? They're on Cybertron. They're the only Autobots surviving on Cybertron, and there's a few more, but they're the only ones who are active, right? Because the others are damaged or lower Energon, right? So and Cliffjumper got teleported there in during the Jai One Johnson run, so he's kind of stuck there, right? So wait, to recap the whole thing, Cliffjumper, he buried this thing on Cybertron, which was a Spark, I think Spark Combiner. I forgot what the name was, right? So this MacGuffin, right? It combines all the sparks of dead Autobots, dead Transformers, and makes them into one. So it's like all the best parts of each dead Autobot combined into one, right? So it's like creates a beast. So he had to get the well of all sparks, right? And he did, and he ended up creating Shredhead, right? He was like, oh, this Autobot with all the best parts of each deceased Autobot into one, right? He's like this really amazing character, right? There's a lot of badass moments in the Daiwan Johnson one, right? Um, so yeah, Elita One is basically she basically thinks that Optimus Prime is her enemy. She considers Optimus Prime her enemy now because he chose Earth over Cybertron, and plus he also basically doomed Cybertron because he destroyed the Energon. The I think a little bit the only remaining some of the only remaining Energon left. So she kind of really hates him right now. So that's crazy. Um, but overall, like so far, the Robert Kirkman on is doing really really well. I'm excited to see how what kind of storylines he adds to his own run and see how maybe it impacts the greater universe. And yeah, that's going to be it for today's episode, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed. I know it's been a really long time since I've been really busy with school. Um but yeah, I think I'll try to get back on track with episodes. I'll try. Keyword try, right? So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this. This is the first time I probably talked about a comic on the show. So yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one.